Jones, welcome to the stage. Erik Jones, good to have you here. Pretty exciting times for you, isn't it? Starting brand new fresh.
Yeah, it is. It's an exciting season with a new group of guys, a new team. Not anything new for me. It seems like every year I'm with a new team, but you know, it's exciting to be with a group that had such a successful 2016 to come into the Cup Series with and start a new team, and a team that's really on the rise and is growing, and pretty cool to start a team with them.
All right, raise your hands, please, and our runners will try to get to you as quick as possible. Let's go right here. We'll start with Bob and then across the table, and then we'll get to Matt.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Under the old point system, as a rookie, you could kind of ease your way in and know if you were top 30 and got a win late, you'd be in. With this new system, it changes a little bit. Does that change your approach or your thoughts about what would be successful this year?
Yeah, I think it does. You know, I think last year, really all throughout my career, I've been a little bit of a, you know, all or nothing, checkers or wreckers kind of driver. And really the format last year I thought played into my hand. And it did up until the time the chase actually started, and I realized you had to be consistent in 3 races, which we did, and we made it all the way to Homestead. And I think it's definitely different this year. You have to position yourself to get the best possible finish you can in every segment and rack up those bonus points to get to the chase. And at the end of the day, the more bonus points you have, the better position you're in to make it at Homestead.
Jordan Bianchi, SBNation.com. Erik, you're one of the first drivers, part of the Young Toyota Driver Program to reach Cup. When you entered that program, did you have the expectation? Was it laid out for you that, hey, this is the path for you and we're going to get you there if you have this success?
Heck no. When I joined KBM in 2013, at that time, Toyota was, you know, heavily invested into our sport, but they didn't really have a driver development program like they do now. It was me and it was Darrell Wallace at the time at KBM. But KBM had never won a race with anybody but a Cup driver at that time. That's a piece that I think a lot of people forget. So Darrell and I were there together, and obviously Toyota did a lot for me and has done a lot for me all the way up until that point. But there was never a time, especially early on, that they were like, hey, this is our plan, this is where you're going. I was along for the ride, trying to win as many races as I could and hoping that they would stick with me.
All right, we've got a couple of questions right here, Matt, and then we'll go to Kelly.
Matt Weaver, AutoWeek.com. I just asked the same question to Chase, but having followed both of you kind of from the beginning to today, y'all haven't raced each other a lot in NASCAR, but over the year, or in the Cup Series rather, Xfinity, but certainly late models, you guys have kind of had a bit of a rivalry. There have been races where one of you would beat the other, and there was a lot of emotion on the losing side. As you now go to your Cup career and get to race him more, from your perspective, is there kind of a rivalry, a friendly one between you two?
You know, I guess there sort of was at the late model level, just because of the sense we were always racing each other so much growing up, and we were always at the same races, always at the same big races. You know, I don't know if it'll carry over into the Cup Series. You know, it was always a friendly rivalry. It's not like we were out there wrecking each other. We were just always racing each other hard, and we were upset when we lost. I think we both share that quality. Neither of us like to lose, and you know, neither of us want to lose to each other. So I think at that time, especially, we felt like we were competing against each other a little bit. You know, each young guy trying to burst onto the scene in NASCAR, and we both wanted to run better than the next guy. So, you know, I think it'd be good for the Cup Series if we're running up front and running together. I'd love that. I think that'd be great. I think it'd be great for the sport, and I hope we're up front challenging for wins with him.
All right, we'll go to Kelly over here, and then over to Tyler.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Erik, you mentioned in your opening that it seems like every year you're with a different team, and certainly the last couple of years you've been in many different cars with many different teams. While you've been successful in each of those, do you feel like moving around that much and working with so many different people has hindered you in any way?
I don't know if it's hindered me, but it's definitely made it more challenging. You know, I hope I can build a group here at Furniture Row, a group of guys that I'm with for a long time. You know, I've never had that chance really anywhere throughout my career, in late models, in trucks, Xfinity, anything. So I've never had a chance really to work with a group of guys more than 1 year. Trucks, I did a little bit. I worked with them for 2 years, and we were able to win the championship there. But for the most part, it's been a new group of guys, new crew chief, every year, which is challenging, especially for a young driver. You know, just try to get to know them for, it seems like, the first half of the year until you can really gel and get to work together well.
Zacatan's already front stretch, kind of tying into that. This is your third straight different championship format you've had to adjust to. So, what are the difficulties of adjusting to 3 different formats and 3 different series at such a young age?
Yeah, it's been. I never even thought about that, but yeah, the Truck Series, my first year running for the championship was the traditional points format. Last year was obviously the Chase implemented it into the Xfinity Series. Now we have the new playoff format and the segment format here in the Cup Series. So, yeah, it's very different. Obviously, growing up, the only points format I knew was a very traditional points format, and now being in the Cup Series, it's different. But I think it's pretty well understood by the drivers. I understand it well enough to know what I need to do. But yeah, there's a different mentality, I think, for each points format that I've had to adjust to each year. So it's challenging, but as a driver, I think we all adapt pretty quick and just run the best we can every week.
Over here.
Tyler Burnett, Motor Racing Network. Eric, when Carl announced he was retiring before the season, it was a bit of a surprise to everyone. And before you announced you were coming into the Cup Series this year, you really were kind of the guy that were going to come in for Gibbs this year to race in the Cup Series or potentially when the next ride was open. When you first heard that Suarez was coming in and Carl was out, what was your initial reaction?
I was just really surprised. We were all surprised as anybody. The drivers, we didn't hear until Sunday night. And I remember when I was first told, they were explaining that, yeah, Carl's going to retire. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like this is his last year. Okay, that's cool. And they're like, no, he's retiring now. He's retiring on Wednesday. And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I mean, yeah, cool. Good for him. But, it didn't change anything for me, honestly. We had our operation set up at Furniture Row, and I think we've got a solid team built over there.
So we're not getting a retirement announcement from you this week?
No, not this week.
All right, good enough.
Hopefully in like 25 years, maybe.
All right, thanks. Let's go in the back here.
Adam Femick from Speed Sport Magazine. Obviously, you came up in the late model ranks, and you've announced you're going to run a late model race next week at Speedfest. Can we expect any additional late model races this year? I know, obviously, your schedule is going to be just a little packed running the Cup Series.
It's pretty busy. Yeah, and I'll have some Xfinity races on there, too, that are going to keep me pretty busy. But I've got one more planned out in California for the Winter Showdown here in a few weeks, which is exciting. That's a race I've wanted to run for the last few years. I'd love to go run the Oxford 250. But got to see how the schedule plays out. We've kind of played it by ear the last couple of years with my late model races, and probably be about the same this year.
Okay, right here.
Dan McFadden with NBC Sports. What kind of conversations have you had with Martin Truex Jr. in this offseason to prepare yourself for being on this stage in the Cup Series full-time for the first time, and how's your relationship developing?
We haven't had a chance to talk a whole lot in the offseason. I hadn't talked to Martin much before we announced this deal back at Watkins Glen here, and I think that relationship will grow here as we get closer to the season and we all get back into the racing mode. I'd love to talk to him about transitioning into the Cup Series more, and obviously he went through the same thing coming up from the Xfinity ranks. So, I'd love to hear from him, and I think it's going to be a good relationship. I think Martin will be a great teammate. He's obviously worked as a teammate before. And I think for Furniture Row, it's going to be beneficial just to have 2 cars at the racetrack. They do get the technical alliance from JGR, but having 2 cars and having that 1 extra car information is pretty important. So it should be good.
All right, got time for one more question here.
Alan Cavana, Fox Sports. Eric, we just heard Chase Elliott talk about his rookie year, how the length of a Cup weekend kind of took him by surprise. Have you sought out anyone for any particular advice about what to expect year one and the challenge it can be?
I haven't particularly yet. I've talked to Kyle a little bit about it. But yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend. It's going to be a big change. I'm fortunate that I've had a few times 3 races in the Cup Series back in 2015 to at least get my feet wet. Unfortunately, those races were all double and triple duty, so I don't know what a normal Cup weekend brings. But I had a chance to get my feet wet, which is nice. It's going to be a big change. The competition is just so much higher. In the Xfinity Series, there was times where we'd go to the racetrack, and we'd fire off our first run of practice, we'd be 2/10 faster than second place, and it's like, dang, that's crazy. But you don't see that in the Cup Series. You don't see guys that are even 1/10 better than second place. So that's a big change. But I'm fortunate to be with a team that was fast all year, and that's that's positive for me as a rookie. You need fast race cars to go fast, and I know we'll have that.
All right, Eric, thank you very much for your time. Best of luck in your rookie campaign in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Have practice.
That's right.
So
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
Erik Jones.